The story starts in 1979 January 7 when Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini starts a revolution in Iran against the imperial rule of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. With other liberal democratic and leftist forces then a revolution in the form of demonstrations, strikes and armed street fightings by the January 11 of 1979 whole of Iran as came under the rule of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Then onwards he starts his own plan of making the country theocratic state fastly Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini dismantles his opposition remove parties and before constitution and implements his own theocratic rules for a religious country based on Islam mainly Shia. The liberals and leftists are also being removed from power as a power-sharing structure collapses. Finally by the February 11 Iran officially becomes Islamic Republic of Iran. After month the revolution and the establishment of Iraq's leader Saddam Hussein sees this as an opportunity to occupy some areas of Iran but the Iran is already prepared for this war and readied somehow for 1 year September 22, 1980 Iraq invades Iran from southern area Iran sees this as an opportunity to establish its own Islamic regimes in this country. Iran fastly inwards this southern part of Iraq for stopping any supplies to the country by the 1986 Iraq was fully dried up and with no resources while the Iran was also in same situation but somehow superior by this way in the August of 1986 Iran occupies Baghdad then blitz into the whole country. Thereafter Saddam Hussein was killed Ba'ath Party was dismantled and revolutionaries were arrested. Like this whole Iraq came under the control of Iran now. Iran occupies some parts of Iraq and makes it a puppet state. The Arab countries worry about the expansion Shia regime into the Middle East and prepares forces fastly and keep them in alert. Iran also establishes terrorist groups in the Middle East, like Hezbollah, Houthi and Hamas. In Iraq the power is held by a pro-Shia Badr organization. In Syria Assad's government is more strengthened for Shia regime. In Lebanon Hezbollah seizes whole power. In these all countries lack of civil resistance makes the power and control over the public highly efficient for the governments which are client states for Iran. In 1987 June 26 Iran invades Jordan. Jordan, a Sunni monarchy with a small army, falls relatively easily. As it had no pact with US. The Hashemite monarchy collapses. Pro-Iranian Islamic Republic is installed. Iran creates the Islamic Republic of Jordan. By this time all the countries under Iranian control or client states are followed Iran's ideological model, Wilayat al-Faqih rule of the Islamic jurist. Iran would be emboldened to support Shia uprisings in Bahrain, majority Shia population, Saudi Arabia's eastern province Kuwait, Lebanon, and even Pakistan. By this time all Gulf monarchies become highly alerted. The entire balance of power in the Middle East shifts towards Tehran. Now Iran surrounds Israel on 3 fronts. Lebanon, north, Syria, northeast, Jordan, east. PLO also increases its terror activities in Israel. Although heavy sanctions by the West. Iran now controls 50% of Middle East fuel and gas resources and quarter of world through itself and client states. Iran is now relied on China and black markets only selling resources. By 1990 ending many changes were happening Soviet Union dissolution and US and Europe's alliances Arab countries and NATO expansion also a critical thing for Shia crescent. However one good news Houthis take control of Yemen totally. Now every Arab country want to end the Shia rule US also want to expand its influence over the Middle East. This happens with the Gulf War. On March 22, 1990 Iran's proxies launch a deadliest attack on Israel Hezbollah and Syrian forces from the north, Iraqi and Jordanian forces from the east. Tel Aviv is bombed, Israeli forces suffer losses in the Golan and Galilee. Israel invokes US and NATO support. Israel attacks terrorists in Baghdad which is now a part of Iran and Iran now has a reason to declare war on Israel. Arabs and NATO forces land in Saudi and other Arabian countries to launch an invasion on Iran. US forms a NATO-led coalition, similar to the Gulf War in real history. Like this Gulf War starts. War begins. Operation Iron Sword. American forces fastly advanced through the northern Saudi to Jordan to secure the region, but Iran launches a full-pronged offensive from Kuwait and occupies Kuwait within 3 days. Attacks from the southern coast also happen, but invading Iran is not a small task because Iran is surrounded with mountains on 3 sides, and for invading Iraq, US and NATO military should minimally have at least 1 million soldiers because the Iran's infantry is 6 million soldiers and in them 2 million are stationed at Iraq and occupied Kuwait. PLO forces fastly takes West Bank and advances into Be'er Sheva into Israeli mainland. Iran also gets support from communist states like China, North Korea, Cuba. Mainly China sends many army equipments and weapons to Iran from Central Asian airway. Iran also speed ups its war industry manufacturings and resources extraction. However, Iran has massive oil fields, food storages from first onwards, and already manufactured weapons and military equipments, mainly artillery, guns, bullets. The war is leading by Ayatollah Ali Khomeini, who was Iran's leader from 1989 after Ruhollah Khomeini's death. By December 16, 1991, forces of both sides reach a stalemate on front. The dissolution of Soviet Union will happen, and from 1992 to 1996 no advances happens in war and no fronts change. United States, Germany, United Kingdom, Poland, France, Spain and Italian forces land heavily in the Middle East. In the meantime, Iran also increased its weapons and army up to 13 to 14 million soldiers, while NATO and Arab soldiers only have 6 million. Iran also started a secret program in the underground of Fordo, a nuclear base and testing site since 1984, and finally achieved its first nuclear bomb in 1996. Constant air strikes happen daily, but Iran saves and secures its 2 Sols oil fields and nuclear bases. While Iran protected its oil fields with hard fortifications of concrete and iron, and in the same way nuclear bases also. While Iran protected its bases and sites, it damaged significant oil sites in Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar and Oman. From 1992 onwards, only USA stops trading with China and bring back its investments, factories and all things which were given to China from 1978 onwards. Due to its support to Iran, China becomes weak to support Iran, but Iran also facilitated its materials to continue war for another 10 years till 2006. But with the acquiring of nuclear weapons in 1996 December, war becomes more intense and dangerous day by day. Tel Aviv destroyed totally, northern Israel occupied totally, but no use of nuclear weapons was a deal between both sides and all countries in the war. In March of 1997 Iran makes an offensive from northern Arabia, takes control of Sakaka in 16 days. Iran uses guerrilla warfare, suicide bombings, urban insurgency, like Iraq war but 10x scale. Terrorist attacks happen daily in Western countries, mainly in NATO. Iran's network bleeds NATO slowly. Israel suffers massive internal unrest, multiple fronts of war. US loses public support at home, like Vietnam in the 1970s. Iran expands war to Gulf oil fields. Saudi oil hit, markets crash. Bill Clinton's incumbency and inconsistency fails in the war, which leads to dragging it. However, as is using its resources at all stages. Iran is fighting in a way of losing all but winning the war. Also in 2000 Al Gore, a Democrat, wins the presidential elections. He is anti-war candidate and makes negotiations and diplomatic stances with Iran and Israel to stop ongoing bloody war. On December 9, 2000 Treaty of Tehran is signed by USA and NATO. It decreases US and Europe's money in Middle East, removes their all military bases and camps and soldiers in all Arab countries, and makes a statement of no more intervention in the future. Conflicts which run in Middle East. Catastrophe for West. Collapse of Western world 1998-2000. Likewise, US presidential election in 2000 brings isolationist candidate. NATO nations begin withdrawing. Israel, isolated and under siege, withdraws to core territory, negotiates ceasefire. US signs humiliating withdrawal deal. Iranian allied governments remain in power in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon. Iran gets whole Kuwait and northern Arabia. Islamic Iran's dominance in Middle East increases totally. Bahrain also becomes a client state of Iran. Saudi and other Arab states sign Treaty of Baghdad. A humiliating defeat caused civil wars and Shia uprisings in loosed countries. Iran's victory and aftermath. Iran's new empire, the Islamic Crescent. A Shia Islamic bloc now stretches from Iran to the Mediterranean. Named the United Islamic Resistance Front, UIRF. Iran leads a federation of client states with a common currency, military command, and ideology. Globe geopolitical consequence: collapse of U.S. influence in the Middle East. U.S. withdraws from Gulf. Saudi Arabia and UAE seek deals with Iran to survive. Israel weakened, resorts to isolationist, defensive policy. U.S. military image tarnished, worse than Vietnam. Small diamond rise of the Shia world order. Iran becomes undisputed superpower of the Muslim world. Shia Islam spreads to Yemen, Bahrain, and even Pakistan's Shia regions. Sunni extremism rises as a reaction. Al-Qaeda-style movements multiply. Collapse of NATO unity. European public turns against US-led wars. NATO fractures. EU develops independent defense policy. Rise of anti-war, anti-American sentiment across Europe. Oil and economy. Iran controls over 50% of the world's oil via Gulf and Iraq. Sets prices, forms new oil Islamic Union. Western economies suffer recessions, shift toward renewables.